All right, I want to show you a couple things that we did on this house. So here's what we got. We installed a new ball valve. This is the incoming water coming from the outside, coming into the home. Here's a new ball valve. And then this is what we call a pressure reducing valve. So the pressure coming in from the city exceeds 80 psi. It's too high. So what this does is it brings that pressure back down, and we dial it into about 75 psi so it's not too high, because believe it or not, you can actually have too much pressure. Nothing in your home is designed to work at pressures above 80 psi. So it's damaging to your fixtures, to your faucets, to the gaskets. It'll put wear and tear and undue stress on those, and they'll fail quickly. So we do PRV, ball valve. Got her all going. Now here's the conundrum though that we need to discuss. When you add a PRV to a home, now by lowering the pressure, we can actually create more pressure, and I'll show you why. So when we add the PRV, right, the incoming water, this has a check valve, so water comes up, but water can't push back. Well, when you're boiling a pot of water, what happens? It starts bubbling, and it gets more volume because the molecules are moving quicker, and it starts creating more space. Well, what do we have in our home that heats up water? A water heater. So when you have a PRV, now turns your home into a closed system. And once this water heater starts to heat water, what you'll find is that as it heats the water, it puts undue stress on the home and starts pushing water pressure because of the additional volume back up onto the pipes and creating additional pressure. How do you fix that? It's kind of a conundrum. So when you add a pressure reducing valve, you can in effect cause greater pressure than what you had before. And so when you add a pressure reducing valve, you have to add an expansion tank. And that's what this is. This is a bladder that you fill up. So I told you earlier that we set the house to 75 psi. So we pump this up, this bladder down here. It's like a bicycle pump that we use. We pump this bladder up to 75 psi. So when this water starts to heat up, causing thermal expansion, creating more pressure because it's heating, this is designed to absorb that expansion. So when the PSI gets above 75, it'll start pushing back and onto the system. And then this bladder, it pushes into this bladder, and the bladder absorbs it. So the expansion tank allows us to absorb that additional thermal expansion. Unfortunately, expansion tanks are few and far between. A lot of people don't use them. A lot of companies don't install them. But thermal expansion is real. It happens, and this solves that problem. Okay, so what we've learned is that if your home has a pressure reducing valve on the main line coming in, then you better see an expansion tank. So if you have a pressure reducing valve, then you need to have an expansion tank on your water heater. If you don't, what will happen is there will be excessive pressure throughout your entire water distribution system. Every faucet in your home, everything that conveys water will have excessive pressure. And the only way to win is by installing an expansion tank. So remember, pressure reducing valve, expansion tank. They go hand in hand. You should always have an expansion tank. But anyway, this is Lawrence with D-Hart Plumbing, Heating, and Cooling. Hey, Chris, say bye, bud. Oh, hey, all right. Have a good weekend, guys.